Good morning, everyone. On Zoom, we are about to broadcast on Facebook too. I want to welcome everyone to Debunking the Myths COVID-19 vaccine. We want to welcome you. We're going to get started in a few moments to allow everyone to join us on Facebook, on Zoom. Come on in, spread the word. We're up live now on Facebook. So if you want to invite people that have had any hesitation about COVID vaccine, understanding the myths or anything of that nature, please share this, add them on this feed. We're going to get started at exactly 12:05 at top of the hour at 5. So we got 4 more minutes. Please, everyone, join us. We have some amazing panelists here today. Our moderator, Eric Knowles, Dr. Coupe, and Dr. Thomas. This is part of our Health and Wellness Committee initiative. So please join us, please share. For those that are on Zoom, please make sure you use the Q&A to submit your questions that will be answered towards the end of the conversation. Feel free to use the chat to say good morning, hello to each other. Please join us. It is a very informative conversation. No question that you ask is a stupid question. Everyone has these questions. So please make this as engaging as possible so that you can get the answers with our experts that we have. We're going to give just a few more moments for those to get on, to share, to join us. We look forward for you being here today. All right, for those on Facebook, you can click the link at the top to join us on Zoom so that you can be a part of this conversations and ask questions in our Q&A. All you have to do is click the link. Make sure you share. This is the time right now to share so that while we're in the middle of this conversation, we're focused on the valuable information that everyone's going to be providing today. We have another two minutes before we get started. So join us, and we will get started in actually in less than a minute. All right. This is a very important conversation. As we know, we have this pandemic that is raging at its literal height since it began last year. This past January, we had one of the deadliest and highest infection rate at any time in this pandemic. So this is a much needed conversation because now there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which is why we as a chamber is pulling together those experts in the field so that we can get the top and best information to everybody as soon as possible. So it is coming on 12:05. And again, I would like to welcome everyone to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce Health and Wellness Committee, Debunking the Myths of COVID vaccine. Let's start off with words from our president and our moderator, Mr. Eric Knowles.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. As Matthew said, this is a very important conversation we're having today. I know that I personally have been somewhat apprehensive about taking the vaccine, but as I begin to educate myself much more, I'm making an informed decision that it's something that I need to do. So with that, It is truly my honor today to have with us our health and wellness chairwoman, Dr. Delvina Thomas, who is a board certified psychiatrist. And with her, joining her today, is Dr. Sydney Coupe, who is a board certified internal medicine physician, who will be bringing us the information that is important to our community. As we just saw in the last couple of weeks or a week ago, that we know that we suffer disproportionately in every area when it comes to our health. But even last week in the Miami Herald, they showed that we weren't even getting the vaccine in our communities. Um, Publix was one of those businesses that was uh, receiving or helping in far as the distribution. And we know that in our communities, there are no Publix in the hood, as they say. So there's a lot of work to be done. But today we're here to debunk the myths and to learn more about the importance of taking the vaccine. With that, I'm going to get out of the way and bring up to the stage, as they say, Dr. Delvina and Dr. Coupe. How are you doing, Doc?
Hey, Prez.
Hello, hello, Mr. Knowles.
Yes, good to see you both. And like I said, I'm going to get out of the way and let you all bring this information, this important information, to our community. We truly appreciate it. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who has decided to join us and spend your lunch hour or a part of your day with us to hear about this very essential and important advance in science. So vaccinations are what help us to create herd immunity in our communities and to also rid ourselves of certain viruses and illnesses so that we can save lives. Millions of people have been affected in one way, either personally because of developing or acquiring the illness of coronavirus 19, or you yourself may know someone in your family or a close friend who or a coworker who may have long-term complications or may have passed away from the challenges or the symptoms of coronavirus 19. So today I'm talking with Dr. Sydney Coupe, as President Knowles has mentioned, and we're discussing all of the facts about coronavirus 19 vaccination. We're giving you the facts. We're going to debunk the myths. I have questions that I'd like to ask Dr. Coupe, questions that are a reflection of what the community has been thinking, what the concerns are, but we also encourage you to please comment in Facebook and ask your questions. We will answer all the questions. We'll talk for about 30 minutes. And then for about 10 minutes, we'll have a question and answering session. So as of February 1st, over 31 million Americans, most over the age of 65, had received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. In the coming weeks, the vaccine rollout is expected to extend beyond healthcare workers and the elderly, yet neither of the two vaccines have been approved by the FDA for children. So today's discussion, this is more so, this pertains to adults. This is not necessarily about little children. We know that Pfizer's vaccine has been cleared for people 16 years and older, and Moderna's vaccination is approved for 18 years or older. But the trials have started for children. But as of now, we cannot say or give recommendations with regards to the vaccination in children. So we'll keep our comments, and today's discussion will mainly be for adults, for people age 16 and older, if you're considering Pfizer, and for 18 and over, if you're considering Moderna. Dr. Coupe, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delvina. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes. Yeah, we have a great time. And today we have a lot of information to get through in a short amount of time. And we have to break it down and be basic so we can so everyone on all levels can understand, meaning folks who are lay people, who are not medical people. So
like, that's the way I feel comfortable talking. How about that?
Yes. And so I want to start by saying this. I'm paraphrasing, but I believe it was comedian D.L. Hughley who said, "I don't know what's in Tylenol, but I know when I have a headache, I take it and it helps." And so that's kind of the mindset I want everyone to develop during today's conversation, is just having an open mind, and whatever you heard from lay folks or whatever you've seen on websites or whatever information you may have received from a source that's not considered reputable because it's not a medical source, please set that aside and open your brain so that you can receive the information today.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I think we have to talk about the basics. We have a vaccination now for coronavirus 19. We have 2 vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. Dr. Coupe, people are concerned about the speed at which the vaccinations were developed.
Well,
there's a lot of suspiciousness for this reason.
and that's a very fair question, and it's a very common one. First of all, vaccinations is not something that's new to the medical arena, to our healthcare. Vaccines been around for centuries, and we've learned a lot about them. And it's a very interesting method that they use to vaccinate people, where you develop immunity against particular virus and pathogens. Now, the reason why I believe we actually had a faster process of this vaccination and its development was for multiple reasons, but I think for 2 major reasons. Number one, it has to do with the advancement of our technology in the past 10 years. Vaccines has been the simple, let's get the live vaccine virus into a vaccine or a platform and inject it in us in a controlled environment so our immune system can learn it to eventually protect us from any further infections in the future. But now we're not going from just live virus or even an inactivated virus. We're now got even more sophisticated. And we're looking at taking what you call a messenger RNA, a genome portion of that virus, and putting it in a vaccine, so then we can develop the immune that we have, the immune defense that we need to fight off this virus. So in essence, the speed has to do with the technology advancement. But also the second one is just a speculation. The reality is this. You now have all domains, everyone's attention to this solution of trying to fight off COVID-19. Let's face it, it has impacted everyone. Whether if it's someone that that died from this virus, or someone you personally know for sure, or economically, right? You couldn't work, you had to do social distancing. It has impacted all of us. So this was a representation of how we all came together, business, all types of professions coming together to support the medical community and scientist community to develop a vaccination so we can once and for all come to a close with this pandemic.
So awesome. Perfect. I mentioned this to someone. I said, I would expect that because the United States, we consider ourselves to be more technology enhanced. We're more advanced, so we believe. And we are. We have a lot of technological advances. This is definitely a representation of the system, of the science the scientific community that we've created in America. So let's just say it, safety is not compromised. Absolutely. By this vaccine. Safety has not been compromised because people are saying there are no long-term studies. However, keep in mind, so many people were infected by coronavirus 19 that we had plenty of people to test this vaccination on. So we were able to go directly from sequencing to developing the vaccine in less than a year. And I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned about long-term impact of vaccination. Like I mentioned before, vaccination is not new. In fact, vaccination is the single most effective and most impactful weapon that we have in the medical community to address viruses. And so as you think about all the vaccinations that have been created, and we think about long-term impact, there has been no long-term impact from any vaccination that's been created. So we gotta set the record straight. There's a lot of myths. Myths on top of myths before COVID-19, and then we now have COVID-19 myths of vaccinations. So there has not been any long-term impact from any vaccinations, you name it, from the flu, polio, none. And what's long-term? We know in the scientific community that we will discover a long-term effect of a vaccination, believe it or not, within 30 days after being vaccinated. So when people talk about long-term, they're like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen in a year or 2 years from now. We don't need to wait 2-3 years to know the long-term impact of a vaccine.
Yes. Okay, so I'm so glad you debunked that myth, because that's what I keep hearing people say, oh, I'm waiting around because I want to see long-term what's going to happen. That doesn't exist.
No. I mean, to be honest, I think we're dealing with another issue, which is trust. And I don't know if it's information about the vaccine itself that they're looking for, but I do believe that our community, in addition to being affected in an unfair way, I mean, this virus has been a super predator on our community. But in addition, we have the highest vaccine hesitancy rate. That means not willing to take the vaccine, right? And so it's like a double rammer, right? So we've been dying from this thing. We need it the most, and yet we don't want it.
Okay, so the next important thing, so I'm going to move it along to, you mentioned that the vaccine is an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah.
This is not a live virus vaccine, folks. This is not a live virus vaccine. Someone asked a question, and I just want to put it out there right away in the chat. Can the vaccine give you the virus?
The answer is no, an overwhelming.
Absolutely no.
And to be honest, it's more than just not a live vaccine, a virus. It's not even an inactivated virus. It's actually, we got a little bit more sophisticated than this. And this is what the historical technological advancement, scientific advancement that we have, which is this notion of using messenger RNA. Again, we've been working with this stuff for over 10 years. And it was simple for us to identify a component, which is the spike of the coronavirus that we coded for. That's the same spike that our immune system just needs to read in order to develop the right cells and immune defense against it. And so that's all that is. So we got more sophisticated. So to be honest, it's even safer than your live flu virus vaccine.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and let's debunk the next myth. The next myth is that, so you mentioned already that it's not a live vaccine. We're using mRNA, which is messenger RNA. We don't have the time to really go into defining what is mRNA, but let's debunk this myth. Can the coronavirus 19 vaccine cause changes to your DNA or your genetic makeup?
The answer is no. I mean, honestly, you have to think about your understanding of genomics, right? And what is the messenger RNA? It reads a code. It doesn't go into your genome and change the codes that's in your gene. It reads a particular gene. So before it even comes in, or they put it into the vaccine, it reads a particular code, and that code codes specifically for a protein on the virus. And so when your body reads it, it just develops, it's a code to develop particular cells. So your immune system has multiple cells, B cells, T cells, and I won't go into it, but it's cells that are meant to attack pathogens, foreign pathogens. And so all that code does is tells it what kind of cells to develop so it can fight against this COVID-19.
Okay. All righty. So we know that we have two vaccines available to us, Moderna and Pfizer. Should I be concerned about which one I receive?
Absolutely not. I mean, think about it. The Pfizer, they were 95% effective, Moderna 94% effective. They both were seen to be safe. And they both, their trials similarly shows that they can actually develop the impact that we need and the defense that we need against this virus. So to be honest, whether it's the Moderna, the Pfizer, the issue is which one is accessible to you. Both of them are going to do what they need to do.
And what do they do? How do these vaccines protect us?
Well, so in essence, as you previously alluded to, it's about training and teaching our immune system to be able to recognize a particular virus early and to not cause too many morbidity in our body, meaning don't get sick, right? So you won't get sick if you recognize this virus already, because your body's already prepared to receive this type of virus. Now, the reality is when you get the first shot, whether it's the Pfizer or the Moderna, you have to wait maybe 21 or 28 days for the second shot, which we call the booster vaccine, okay? And that you need both because the studies was done in the sense of where you have the first dose and the booster vaccine. And it's after the booster vaccine, you will achieve that 94, 95% effectiveness. So you do need both vaccinations. And that's how we're going to be able to protect those individuals. But more importantly, though, Dr. Delvina, is that we need enough people to be vaccinated so we can get this thing we call herd immunity. That means that getting to a percentage of people in the population that's affected where we wouldn't have to necessarily practice some of these things like social distancing, wearing face masks for very long, right? And we can say that we actually defeated this virus. So it requires a certain amount of population to be vaccinated to get to that point. So, but in that sense, there's no difference between the vaccinations. And I think they both are good. And I'm excited to have them as an option.
Okay. So I kind of wanted to go in order with these questions. However, I mean, you just mentioned herd immunity and still wearing masks and still social distancing. So I'll go ahead and just interject this question. When you get the vaccine, you receive the first and the second dose, because remember, folks, it will not help you if you don't receive both. Whenever a vaccine requires more than one dose, you have to receive all of the doses. So for both Moderna and Pfizer, you require 2 doses. Well, before I get to that question, I'll ask you this. What is the schedule for the dosing for the vaccinations? How many days apart is dose 1 from dose 2?
So for the Pfizer, it's 21 days. And again, when you take the first dose, if you end up taking it as earlier than 4 days before the 21 days, that's okay. And if you take it later, I mean, if you take a month later or 2 months later, it's still okay, as long as you get that second dose. Same thing with Moderna, but Moderna, you have to wait for 28 days for the second dose. And again, you know, we can tell you that if it's a logistical issue, getting the second dose, you do not have to start all over if a month or 2 months pass from the second dose appointment, right? Because you still can get the second dose and still get the same effectiveness with the vaccines.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, and what I wanted to ask previously before I asked you for the dosing schedule, are we still wearing masks and social distancing as people are taking the vaccination?
Absolutely. Now, look, just because you're vaccinated does not mean you can't transmit the virus, right? Again, what does it mean to be immunized? It means that the virus is not going to cause you to be sick, right? Viruses are ubiquitous. And unfortunately, we've seen this with COVID-19. It's everywhere, right? You know, it's easily transmissible. And that was the issue with this virus. And so absolutely, you get your vaccine. We're not out the woods yet, ladies and gentlemen. Wear your mask, practice social distancing, wash your hands. All of these things are still fair game. See, my thing is about practicing all the options available to us in order for us to be more prepared and more likely to succeed and to defeat this thing at the end.
So you just debunked another myth, and that's the myth that once I get the vaccination, I cannot carry the disease and I can't make anyone else sick, which is absolutely not true. If you get vaccinated, you still could be infected with coronavirus 19. You may not get sick, but you can still be an asymptomatic carrier and you can still pass on the virus to other folks.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate, the vaccine is not what's causing you to have COVID-19. The vaccine does not cause you to have the disease. But after being vaccinated, you can still catch the disease by touching a doorknob and rubbing your face, and or somebody's coughing and sneezing on you, or somebody who's asymptomatic and that kisses you, that hugs you. So yes, you can still get it and not get sick, and then you go hug and kiss someone else, then you can then transmit to that person if they're not vaccinated.
Yes. Okay, so folks are wondering which one is safer, Moderna or Pfizer? We already talked about the efficacy and they're both pretty much 94, 95% effective. Which one is safer?
So far, they both show both safety numbers, right? So both of them are pretty safe for the most part. There's no real difference in their safety. In fact, when we test a safety for a vaccine, that usually happens in a phase 1 of the trial. And both of them went through phase 1 and successfully completed phase 1 in order for them to go to phase 2 and then phase 3. So the fact that we're actually using it as an emergency utilization a vaccination, it tells me that it actually went through the same rigor to assess whether it is safe, similar to the Pfizer. So these vaccinations are indeed safe. And none of the process of developing vaccination the process was never out of integrity. We did not compromise the integrity of the process. The process remained the same, but we were able to speed up the process because of the advancements of the technology that we have, which I previously mentioned. So again, these vaccines are indeed safe, because otherwise we would have never been able to get to this point with it.
Okay. So what are some of the possible side effects? Some people are concerned. One of my staff just said to me the other day, someone died after taking the COVID-19 vaccine. What are some of the most common side effects that can occur from both are very similar. Moderna and Pfizer cause similar side effects, folks. So I'll preface by saying that first. What are some of the common side effects from the vaccines?
Well, I mean, side effects, remember, it's important for me to mention this. As I talk about these side effects, they're not allergic reactions. Side effects actually is a good thing. It's a sign that the vaccine is working. So when you think about a side effect like my arm is tender, right, after the vaccination, you feel a bit malaise, meaning tired, right? Or some people might get a little bit nauseous after the vaccine. Those signs or side effects are signs that your immune system is working, is recognizing something foreign, and an inflammatory process is happening, right? A reaction is happening within your body to learn this pathogen. So side effects are expected, and there are people who won't get side effects because for whatever reason, their immune system reacts differently. Everyone is different. So one side effect from one person is not gonna be the same from another. But the key thing to know is that no one has died from taking this vaccine. The vaccine does not cause death. When you really understand what a vaccine is, what this COVID-19 vaccine is, it doesn't make sense for someone to actually relate it to some sort of disease or even death. So I just want to make that clear.
Crystal clear. You just debunked another myth. Thank you for that. And that myth is that the coronavirus 19 vaccination can cause death.
Yes. And so, I mean, that doesn't happen. Now, you are hearing different things, right, from different news and that people who got the vaccine after they vaccinated, they develop a particular condition. I know you've heard of Bell palsy as a possible condition people get, or even some people who end up dying. And very few numbers show that, but that's not related to the vaccine itself. These folks may have other conditions. And this thing about Bell's palsy, I just want to just throw that out there here. I mean, if I go around and touch as many people in the community as I can, right? The same percentage of the people that they identified after getting the vaccine that developed Bell's palsy will be the same percentage of people who would develop Bell's palsy by just me touching them, right? So what is that? It's a coincidence. That's what that is. That means that the touching of somebody's shoulder does not cause them to get Bell's palsy. That's easier for people to understand, right? So in other words, the vaccine does not cause Bell's palsy. And I just want to make that very clear. The percentage of Bell's palsy that they noted in the vaccination trials is very similar to the general population when they don't take anything at all.
Okay, so you just debunked another myth, and that is, I can get Bell's palsy. I don't want my face to hang down on one side from taking the vaccination. And these are very serious. And so I don't want anyone to feel like we're taunting or making fun. We're just trying to just review all of the myths that are out there that we're aware of and address these so that people feel more comfortable and safer in receiving the vaccination.
And I want to echo that too, because I think it's important because, there's no dumb questions, right?
Right.
The questions for me in my community, and I've seen questions that have gone from like very, what made people say irrational or outrageous to things that are more technical. But the reality is I see them all the same level. It's just a reflection of where our community is. It's a reflection of years, decades of what we call these disparities. And I just want to tell you, we haven't gotten to this yet, but this is a reflection of distrust. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if we know if we're asking the right questions. The people who are asking these questions may not know what they really need to ask about it, because it's not about information, because whether I tell them the technical aspect of this vaccine, will it change their mind? I think it's a trust issue. And then I'm sure you're going to get into that with me.
Yeah, well, we had about 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to talk about Tuskegee and, the disparities in our communities, as you've just mentioned. But just a little bit about that, more Black folks are dying from coronavirus 19 than any other population, but we're the most hesitant to get the vaccination. So that's why we're having this talk and this discussion, We know that we're higher risk for dying because we have so many comorbidities, and we suffer from things like hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, elevated blood sugar. And so that makes you a little more at higher risk from complications from coronavirus 19, which could lead to death. Okay, so before I ask you the next question, first question, have you received the vaccination, Dr. Coupe?
I'll tell you, Dr. Delvina, that is the most important question we're asking today. The answer is a resounding yes. Because at the end of the day, you know me, but for the folks who are listening that don't know who I am, yes, I'm a medical professional, but more importantly, I have skin in the game, right? Because I don't want my community to just simply hear people's ideas or just hear thoughts and philosophy around what's going on and what their opinion is about this. I want them to ask themselves, when they hear these erroneous messages about not taking the vaccine, ask yourself, do those folks who are sending these messages have skin in the game? Did they lose somebody? Did they themselves get the vaccine for them to say that the vaccine does this or cause this? In my opinion, we in the scientific community, we use the highest level of studies, which we call a randomized control trial, where for us to get to close to the truth. But we're never 100%. But yet we still have to make a decision, even though we're not 100%. And right now, these vaccines are telling you that they're 95%, 94% effective. In my opinion, we make a lot of decisions on a regular basis that we don't get that level of assurance when we make these decisions. I can tell you right now, I make decisions when I only have 30% of assurance that this thing is effective that I'm going to decide on, right? And yet we expect a vaccination, or where some of the people are in the community is requesting that the vaccination is 100%. But in life, nothing is 100%. And so I just wanted to make this clear that yes, these vaccinations, 94, 95%, and I can guarantee you, because they're using randomized control trial, that's probably one of the highest assurance that we will get when it comes to making informed decisions about a particular thing, such as taking this vaccination.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We have about, it was 8 minutes, now 7 minutes. So we're going to go to the lightning round soon, where I just ask a question and you give me an answer, and we just, quick, fast. But before we start that lightning round, did you have any side effects after your first injection?
No, I didn't. And so what's interesting though, after the first dose that I received, and by the way, I got the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay.
First dose wasn't too bad. In fact, I went right to the gym the next day, worked out, nothing. The second dose, actually, I started feeling some tenderness, like maybe an hour after the vaccine at the vaccination site. And then the next day, I just felt a little tired. And then after that, that was it. Those were my side effects. Now, just to let you know, what the studies are showing is that people who are older than 65 years of age, the second dose caused less side effects in that population than the second dose in younger population. So people who are under 55 years of age, actually, they're experiencing more side effects after the second dose than those who are above 55 years of age.
Okay. Well, I had Moderna. I had the first injection. I had tenderness at the injection site, which is what I get when I take the flu vaccination as well. So I didn't expect anything different than that. I have not taken the second injection yet. I'm due towards the end of this month. Now, we're going into the lightning phase. So if you have had the coronavirus 19, if you've been infected with coronavirus 19, should you take the COVID-19 vaccine?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
So if you've had coronavirus 19 infection, you should still take the COVID-19 vaccine.
Absolutely, because we know that the virus, the actual virus, may not necessarily create an effective immunity process. In fact, what we've learned so far, if people who were previously infected can also get it again, right? After maybe 3 to 6 months, right? Because their immunity is not necessarily perfect. But the messenger RNA actually perfects that immunity process in us. So clearly, even though you were infected with it, you still need the vaccine. And we're thinking that people need to wait 90 days after they've been infected with the virus.
Okay. So someone just received their flu vaccination. How long should they wait to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
Again, it's so important for you to talk to your primary care provider and whoever's administering these vaccines. The issue is that we don't want you to be sick and then getting a vaccination, such as the COVID-19 vaccine. So in essence, when you get the flu vaccine, depending on which one you have, especially if you get the live one, you have to wait until, a couple of weeks or so until this vaccine that you receive takes effect. Again, what is our concern? Our concern is causing illness. So again, I think those type of questions, you want to talk to your primary care provider or doctors to get the right answers for you. And not to mention, you could be immunocompromised. You might be wondering, should I get this vaccine? Absolutely, you should get this vaccine, right? And now, what are the instances? The issue, are you going to develop the same immunity as those who are not immunocompromised? Maybe not, but some protection is better than no protection.
Okay, so let's see. How long will the vaccine provide immunity? Will we have to get this every year?
Right now, that's highly likely, where, we might find ourselves doing this seasonal based on the strand of COVID-19. Right now, the mutation that we're hearing about, we know that the current vaccines that we have right now, both the Pfizer and the Moderna, will protect you from this variant. Okay, what is protection? Protection is not avoiding to get the virus, right? That's not the protection that these vaccines do, right? So you will still get infected. What these vaccines do is prevent you from actually getting sick if you get in contact with this virus. Because I know some people ask the question, well, then what's the point of the vaccination if I still can get it? No, you can get it and then pass it along to someone else without actually getting sick. And that's the reason why, even though you're vaccinated, you should be practicing social distancing and wearing your face mask.
Well, see, you just cheated. You answered someone's question in the chat, but that's okay. Guys, we're not ignoring the questions. We are answering questions starting at 12:40. Right now, it's lightning round, so keep the questions coming. Post your questions and we'll get to them in about 3 minutes. So should folks who have comorbidities, the illnesses, the chronic ailments like asthma, high blood pressure, which is hypertension, diabetes, which is elevated blood sugar, kidney disease, renal disease, or if they're in end-stage renal disease and they're on dialysis, should these people, also people with heart issues like heart failure, someone who's had a heart attack before or a stroke attack or, a stroke, a brain attack, should they get the coronavirus 19 vaccine?
In fact, those are the folks that we want them to get the vaccine first, right? Because as we see with the COVID-19 pandemic, they were the ones that were high risk of dying from this virus. And so absolutely, whatever medical problems you're dealing with, or none at all, you need this vaccine so we can achieve what we call herd immunity.
All right, and you mentioned immunocompromised already, so people who have things like cancer, who may be undergoing treatment, someone who has HIV or AIDS, someone who has lupus, should folks who have these conditions consider getting the coronavirus 19 vaccine?
Yes, similar to anyone else who's immunocompromised. They too need this vaccine.
Okay, and so, all righty, I think we pretty much covered the main points. Just to wrap it up, the COVID-19 vaccination uses mRNA, guys, messenger RNA, which is just a protein that the body quickly breaks down. It is just a protein. There is no microchip. True or false, Dr. Coupe, there's a microchip in the vaccination?
False. There's microchips on our phones, though, I can say that much.
Yeah, just in the phones, not in the vaccine.
Not in the vaccine.
Exactly. This messenger RNA is used to produce protein in our body, in our cytoplasm. And this small amount that gets expressed is used to activate or mount our immune response. So they have used this technology to mimic or create this protein so that we mount a response and you don't have to be infected with a live virus, as we have done previously in the past in creating other vaccines. So, all right, lightning round is over. We are now in the questions and answer section. So I want to ask the first question that came in, and that was, can the COVID-19 vaccine give me coronavirus 19? Can I get an infection from the COVID-19 vaccine?
No.
Okay, absolutely not. All righty, so someone asked, how will medical authorities assess the safety of vaccine vaccinating for children, is there a timeline that's being discussed for the vaccination of children?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, trials are going on right now to understand the efficacy of this vaccine in children. So far, it looks very, very promising. Look, the reason why we didn't do this in the beginning is because we've had vaccination policies created for the sake of protecting children and actually even pregnant women. And I'm sure there's going to be a question around that. But these trials didn't have children below 18 or below 16 or pregnant women, partly because of these vaccination policies. But again, not because we suspect that it's not safe or effective in these populations. And so we are going to be able to vaccinate children very soon as we get the emergency utilization of that.
And pardon, I think President Knowles was coming back on to do the question and answer section with us. So Prez, if you want to come back in, please feel free.
Well, actually, you're doing a very good job, Dr. Delphine. I don't know if I could do anything better than what you're doing. I believe this question has been answered. Why would someone get the vaccine now when it's not as effective against the new strain out of South Africa that is currently spreading through South Florida? I think you touched upon that, but can you come back to that?
Oh, absolutely. So what is this variant? This variant is really the virus that basically adapted and changed a particular protein aspect of itself. And so what does the vaccination do? The vaccination then protects against transmittability, all right? So the transmission of these viruses among people slows down when we achieve herd immunity. So the part of this variant, why they call it a variant, is because the transmittability of this virus has increased with this new mutation, so to speak. So that's what this mutation does, but it doesn't change the organism, and it hasn't. And so, yes, the vaccines that we have today still protects you from the variant. And I know there's been a lot of concerns around it, but data so far coming from UK shows that it is still effective against this variant.
Next question that I have here, does the vaccine have MRC5 in it, and can it cause an iatrogenic reaction?
I think I know
first of all, what is an iatrogenic reaction?
Well, okay, so an iatrogenic reaction or an iatrogenic cause is one that we cause in the medical profession. So if I'm doing a procedure and I cause some sort of injury to the patient, that's like an iatrogenic cause. Or if a medication is taken and the patient develop another disease process. So it's us causing it. Now, just to be clear, I think this is about not knowing what's in this vaccine. Okay, this is a nanoprotein lipid vaccine. Okay, I've said this in multiple arenas already, just to avoid the medical jargons, but it essentially contains everything that oil, lipids, right? It has those contents. It also contains the same thing that sugar contains of, right? Sucrose. So the vaccine platform, so you have the messenger RNA, it needs a vehicle that's going to get to where it needs to get to so our immune system can read it. That vehicle only has basically oil and sugar. It's like I like to say, and so, we already have these things in our body already. And so for the most part, it's very, very safe. So it has nothing in it that can cause any allergic reaction, and certainly not any iatrogenic reaction. And in fact, in my opinion, this is probably one of the safest vaccinations that we have, because this concern about egg allergy, latex allergy, we don't have that anymore, because what's actually in it, our body already has it component.
So the one thing that, we kind of was talking a little bit earlier, and Dr. Delvina gave the analogy, D.L. Hughley, in terms of Tylenol or whatever. I don't know what's inside Tylenol, but I take it, I know my headache is gone away. And I learned this the other day, and actually it was one of the health and wellness committee members, actually it was Lorna, I believe, Dr. Delvina, who was saying that, and I'm trying to recall the fact is, we look at television, and and you see these medications, and all the side effects that you see that you can get from these medications. You know, if your eye is falling out, take this. But the thing is, your big toe might fall off if you take this for your eye. Yeah, obviously, I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating, but the other side of that was the fact that you're taking those medications every day for the most part, and this is a one-time dose, two times, obviously, if you have to take the second dose. So can you, again, from a layman's perspective, explain the difference?
So, I love that analogy, by the way, and I can't stop laughing when I heard it, right? About we take Tylenol, we don't know what's in it, because it's exactly right. This is why I said earlier that the issue our community has around hesitancy has nothing to do with information. It has nothing to do with more information. It has to do with distrust. And so when I hear we're not making decisions on things that are actually could be even safer than things we do every day, it's a reflection of how we make decisions for ourselves, right? We make decisions based off of no information at all, for the most part. And we go with faith. We do decisions based on just a hunch. We make decisions based on gut feelings. And those things that we call gut feelings, hunch, is things that we're trained over years, subconsciously. Our subconscious minds make us make the decisions we do. So it's a notion of how do we make decisions and informed decisions, right? So we have the information there. Are you willing to sit down and listen to the information? What's in the vaccine? It's safer. You heard that already. Can it cause people to die? No, you heard that. Now, the next step is actually, do you trust the information that you hear? And so our community has a lot of issues around distrust, and it's our fault. When I say our fault, I'm thinking about the healthcare community as a whole over decades and decades of generation. When you look at issues such as the Tuskegee experiment, or even healthcare disparities, or unfair, unethical processes or experimentation on Black and Brown communities, when you see that, over the years, we've learned to distrust healthcare or westernized medicine. So this is a bigger conversation. And I have to tell you, I think the underlying issue is a distrust issue. And the question is, how do we develop trust? How do we build relationships with people in our community? So to understand, like, look, take away the negativity and take the good, right? Just because it got negativity doesn't mean all of it is bad. So that's.
So Dr. Delphina, what, obviously from a psychological perspective, what is your message to our community in terms of their mental health in dealing with this?
So, knowledge is always power. Everything has to start with knowledge, feeding your brain, reading, and reading from reputable sources, not reading the stuff that's on, anyone can make a website. People make websites and they blog all day long. That's what people do for a living. And oftentimes they will post things that have no scientific basis. They'll post things that are not factual in the scientific community. So allowing yourself to only utilize or only consider the information you receive from certain resources, like the Mayo Clinic is a good one, WebMD is a good one, Johns Hopkins, going on their site, the CDC is always a reliable way to receive information. So first, starting with knowledge and not allowing yourself to just soak in everything that you're hearing. I can understand as a layperson, if you're someone who's never been trained in the sciences in any sort of aspect, and I don't mean past college, we learn a lot of this basic stuff about DNA and genetics and viruses. We learn these things in undergrad and college. But if you have not learned those things, it can be overwhelming trying to decipher and understand what all of this stuff means and who's telling the truth or who's giving you factual information. So limit the amount of sites you go on, limit the folks you listen to, limit the propaganda. Don't allow yourself to ingest all the extra fluff, and just do some reading for yourself so that you're an informed consumer. And also be more selective about the folks you allow to treat you. Get a good primary care physician. That is like one of the most essential things in life we can do, is to have a kind, reliable, knowledgeable, culturally sensitive primary care doctor managing our healthcare. They can manage your physical health care and can help manage a little bit the mental health part. And when it's something that's outside of their training, or they feel it's outside their lane, they'll know to refer you to someone like myself, a psychiatrist. But I think oftentimes in our community, we're missing having a primary care physician. You should be able to call and make an appointment and say, you know what, I am so overwhelmed by this coronavirus 19 stuff going on. I don't know what to think. I have information coming at me from all these different directions. Can I sit down with you and you just explain some things to me? Just give me, Eric, as we call it in the Army, the bluff, the bottom line up front. What do I need to know? And for example, sometimes when people don't know things, it becomes scary and they pass it along. It becomes another rumor that's passed on to the next person, such as this thing about the mutations. Everyone's focused on the mutation and everyone is using that as a scapegoat or as an excuse not to get the vaccine. Oh, there's mutations that have come out, so the vaccine's not going to be effective. Really, the issue is that you just don't want the vaccine. It doesn't have anything really to do with the mutations. You're afraid of taking the vaccination. And so you're finding any opportunity to use that as an excuse to dissuade yourself not to get the vaccine. Every RNA virus mutates. That's just the science of how these things are made. It's not a big deal. We expect viruses to mutate. It's just that when there's two different types of viruses, DNA and RNA. When there's a DNA virus, quite simply, there's only two strands. There's like two little lines of genetic material. So if one of those lines mutates, it gets deleted and it's thrown out of the sequence. It's no longer there, but that other line is there. But when it's an RNA virus, there's only one line of genomic material. And so when it mutates, you know it. And it doesn't mean a mutation will make it worse or make it more severe. It could actually make it less severe, or it may not change the virus at all. So don't allow information to overwhelm you to the point of shutting you down. And that's the thing. You have to rely on your primary care physician to explain some of these things to you. So that would be my first recommendation, is to have a good, reliable primary care doctor helping you.
Thank you. I know some folks came in a little late, and I believe you answered this question, Dr. Coupe, but I'm going to run it by you once again. There's a major concern of the rapidness of the development of the vaccine, and the fact that it didn't take long for it to be developed. What is the proof behind it?
No, thank you for that question, Mr. Knowles. I have to tell you, first of all, we have proof. It went through the same vaccination process, or rigor, should I say, in order for us to be able to use it today. Scientists have worked very hard. Our system of developing vaccines has not changed. And this time it did not change. The integrity of the process remained. What did change is the pace of the developments. So why is that? Number one is because of our scientific advancement in the past decades. I mean, we've came far when it comes to developing vaccinations and using this, what we call now the messenger RNA. So not only we have an advancement of our scientific capabilities to create things in a much efficient way, but also it creates it in a much safer way. So partly of the pace and why less than a year we got a vaccine is because of the technological advancement we've made in the scientific community. But secondly, it's also related to the fact that now you have all resources poured into one thing, which is the concept of let's get this thing done. Because right now it's hurting our pockets, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I was going to say. You had pretty much the world's top authorities working on this together, concentrating on it versus one company trying to create this over a period of time.
Right.
Absolutely. And if I may add, one of the things that Dr. Delvina mentioned is, for the first part, if you have a medical concern, why don't you go to your medical provider, whoever she or he may be? So whether if it's your primary care physician, whether if it's your nurse practitioner, whoever it is that you go to and see on a day-to-day basis for your healthcare. Why should this time be different, right? You're dealing with COVID-19, go to a trusted source. Now, the other thing I want to add to that is, there is a lot going on. People talk about a lot of home remedies. People talk about a lot of natural remedies. The reality is, folks, we're not going to have this argument of debunking what you do naturally. In fact, knock yourself out. You want to drink some tea, drink some tea. You want to take some vitamins, go right ahead. You want to take some sea moss, you want to take some teas, awesome. All it can do is increase your chances and in order for you to win this war against COVID-19. So I always tell my patients who are from the Caribbean islands, they always say, Doc, how about my sea moss? What do you think? I haven't gotten the virus. I said, look, I haven't seen any studies on sea moss, but listen, can I get some too? Because I want some too. But in the meantime, practice all your options. And guess what? The vaccine is an option to practice that, because at least that one, we know for sure, you get 94, 95% protection from this virus.
What about the vitamin D from the sun?
That's awesome. Knock yourself out. In fact, you can do the IV infusion. Listen, my thing about looking at like zinc, vitamin D, those things don't treat the virus directly. They don't. Does it support your immune system? Absolutely. Anything that supports your immune system. In fact, work out, eat healthier, whatever it is that you do, I would say continue it. Don't change that, especially if it's all positive and it impacts your health in a positive way. The thing is this, we have evolved as a society. We have evolved. And there are things that used to speculate in the past. We no longer are doing that because we have evolved. And history taught us a lot. And I can tell you, and I've said this earlier in the conversation, vaccination is like a nuclear weapon when it comes to medicine. It's our nuclear weapon. It's our biggest and most powerful weapon we have until date. And it's the only weapon that has saved generations of people. Why should I now believe something different? The narrative hasn't changed. It's the same.
Well, this last one I'm going to ask you, I'm sure you're a world traveler. I know Dr. Delvina is a world traveler. Myself as well, and I'm sure many in our audience are world travelers. I know when you go to Africa, you have to take a malaria shot. The world is obviously coming to a point where you cannot go into another country unless you have taken this vaccine. And so what is your commentary around that? And then we're going to just wrap it up for today.
So, I think when we think about what's been happening and what, first of all, our intentions with this vaccine. So you have to understand that aspect. Our intentions with this vaccine is to develop what you call herd immunity. What is that really? That means that we know that if about 60 to 70% of the population develops immunity, that means are vaccinated, got both doses of the vaccine, we know that that will interrupt what you call the transmission of this virus to other people. So real numbers, we had 8 billion people need to get this vaccine. For us, if we get 8 billion people vaccinated, about 10 to 11 billion doses are going to need to be utilized for us to interrupt this transmission. So have we gotten to 8 billion people vaccinated? No, not yet. But as soon as we do, then you could start seeing gradually we can reduce some of these public health restrictions that are also effective against this virus. So, as you travel, it depends on the country that you're going to. Where are they in the process? But as you see, COVID-19, just like most viruses, is a social phenomenon, right? So you have to deal with the social and the political questions around this. And so the social and political questions are going to be different for every country that you go to. There's going to be questions around the doses, the scheduling of this vaccine, the ethics behind it, the effectiveness, the surveillance, actually, who's been vaccinated. You have a vaccination card that shows that you've been vaccinated and got the 2 doses. So there's a lot of questions that remains, but understand that those questions are really social and political that I think we need to work through, and we will discover eventually. But again, this vaccine is something that will be the solution to going back to traveling again, which I know Dr. Delvina loves to do.
Absolutely. time has really slipped up on us rather quickly. It's 1 o'clock. There are a couple other questions around hydrochloroquine. What is this other one? Livermectin, quercetin, and what is
Yeah, all of those outside of the topic of discussion.
exactly. So we're not going to get into that today. Anyway, we know the guy that was sitting in the White House was um, dealing with some of this stuff. But anyway, we want to thank you for the time that you have given us today and educating us. I pray that everyone has taken your expert, your obviously professional advice in this, and that we do what we need to do in order to move forward and to rid the world of this disease, this deadly disease. We've all lost family members or friends or know someone who has lost family members, and so we have to do the thing that's right. And so again, thank you, Dr. Delvina. Thank you for putting this together. Dr. Copay, thank you. And I'm sure down the line, we'll bring you back as this starts to dissipate, hopefully. Um, One last question, speaking about dissipate, um, my whole perspective on 21 is basically that it's going to be a repeat of 2020. As you said, it's going to take a while for people to be vaccinated, but I don't see things changing much in terms of how we as a society interact or how we should interact, because a lot of people are going to do their own thing regardless. And I see that happening. But in order to push this down, we're going to have to, as you say, continue to social distance, continue to wear our masks. But there are people who are getting tired, etc. But again, your outlook on this year in terms of how we're moving forward, and that's the last word. And again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you so much, Mr. Knowles and the whole Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. Look, this is going to be a different year. It's going to be a different year because the sheer number, just the simply sheer number of people who died in 2020. I mean, it's staggering. And I believe that we're not going to see that staggering number this year. That's for sure, for multiple reasons. Because the social distancing that we've done, the mask wearing, the hand hygiene has been so effective. In fact, that was the only weapon we had in 2020. And going into 2021, we not only have that weapon, we now have a vaccination. So again, I know President Biden just got on his, but he is promising 1 million vaccination per month, right? So whatever that is, but whatever number that is, we in the scientific community, we have a scientific algorithm to identify at what point we are going to be back to what you call normal again, where we can hug each other, kiss each other. They call this the reproduction number or the R naught number, right? That has to be below 1, right? Or another way of saying it, as I said earlier, it has to be about 70 to 80% of people vaccinated in our community to reduce transmissibility. So that reproduction number they call is the ability for someone who has the virus to transmit it to someone else. Like they can track the person who actually gave you the virus. Once that ability or that percentage goes down to a safe number, which is again, whether using the R naught or just a sheer percentage, you will then get to a safe zone where we're able to start reducing and cutting back on some of these public health interventions. And when would that be? Well, I'm looking at maybe end of the summer. I mean, if we can address vaccine hesitancy, because that all depends on us. Because if vaccine hesitancy is not addressed and not addressed quickly, we are not going to get to our goal by the end of the summer. And that's where I'll leave you with that.
Well, again, thank you both so much. Those of you who have joined us on Zoom as well as Facebook, thank you for joining us. And please, those of you who have the opportunity and the ability to go and get the vaccine, please do. See you again on our next health and wellness webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.